1. Introduction. ROSEP. The United States government was on track in the Biden administration to reduce the prices for both clean energy heat pumps and clean energy electric cars. Trump tariffs are expected to upset those plans to prevent future air pollution and prevent climate change. The United States government should, instead of certifying wood stoves as safe when they are not safe, go forward with regulations that ban wood stove use and direct government money for use of forest refuse only. For home building and furniture building. For just a few examples of use of forest products for non-burning uses, it is well known from scientific and medical research that wood burning is a substantial source of PM 2.5 emissions, yet the wood burning industry uses the scientifically debunked theory named carbon neutrality of wood burning to argue that wood burning replacing coal burning in industry, and in a trickle-down argument that wood burning should continue for home heating should continue. Presumably because it is called renewable. Wood may be renewable in the sense that a tree can be planted in the place of a cut-down burned tree, but it takes centuries or decades for the newly planted tree to attain the stature of the cut-down burned tree. During those centuries or decades, photosynthesis, which converts CO2 to oxygen and so sequesters some carbon, will not take place at the same rate as photosynthesis was performed previously, and wood burning emits both CO2 and PM 2.5, and PM 2.5 is not absorbed by trees, so PM 2.5 is not diminished by planting a tree in the place of a cut-down and burned tree. In fact, a living tree closes its pores against the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning, just as humans hold their breath in the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning. And when a tree closes its pores, the level of photosynthesis that absorbs CO2 pollution goes down. Wood burning emits 90% PM 2.5 particulate matter of 2.5 micrometer size, the perfect size to infiltrate the human lungs, setting off a cascade of human health problems and early deaths. Contrary to many beliefs, wood burning emits 2.8 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel coal burning, and wood burning emits 450 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel natural gas burning. Replacing coal burning with wood burning creates more air pollution in the form of CO2 and PM 2.5 than coal burning. This emission data comes from testing the cleanest burning wood stove in the United Kingdom, the Eco-Design Wood Stove, and International Convention does not count the emissions from wood burning. The emissions from wood burning are erased from all countries around the world when calculating if each country has met its climate goals. This non-counting or erasure of wood burning emissions data from climate goals does not mean wood burning emissions do not exist. ROSEP. Purple air PM 2.5 monitors hanging from the eaves of the house of a near neighbor should be used to measure the level of PM 2.5 in the air hyperlocally in the yards of near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners. If PM 2.5 levels exceed World Health Organization standards of 5 micrograms per cubic meter annually, then that evidence of air pollution from wood burning should lead to the shutdown of that indoor residential wood burning appliance, one appliance at a time if necessary.
Hi, my name is Lily. Andrew gave you the intro to residents against wood smoke emission particulates and their concern for air pollution from indoor residential wood burning. Residents against wood smoke emission particulates, or ROSEP, would like every near neighbor of an indoor residential wood burner whose wood smoke enters their yards and sickens the near neighbors to have a purple air PM 2.5 monitor hanging from the eaves of their home to measure the level of PM 2.5 entering their yards. That measurement of air pollution should be used as evidence of unnecessary air pollution, and each indoor residential wood burner should be shut down based on that evidence, one indoor residential wood burner at a time if necessary. The presentation by Andrew ended at 2 minutes 5 seconds. The same presentation by Emma starts at 2 minutes 3 seconds before the end of this podcast. So I am Lily, your timekeeper, and you can start the next podcast at 2 minutes 5 seconds in if you would not like to see the presentation by Andrew a second time. This presentation by me, Lily, ends at 5 minutes in. What you will see in the main content of this ROSEP podcast will be news about air pollution from indoor residential wood burning and how that air pollution is being combated by ordinary people just like you who are unfortunately near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners at this time. There will also be news about unnecessary and highly polluting use of wood as fuel in industrial wood burners and preventable air pollution from wood burning wildfires. There will also be news about air pollution from PM 2.5 from gas-powered cars. There will also be news about airborne diseases which are also preventable with vaccines such as COVID-19 and measles and whooping cough, to name just a few. In 2025, residents against wood smoke emission particulates is also concerned with combating the Trump destruction of government funding for programs which protect human health through the Department of Health and Human Services, and Trump destruction of programs which fund the science and medical research plan to protect human health from preventable illnesses. Protecting human health is a patriotic act, and our defense against enemies is weakened if we are not as healthy as we can be. Heat pump rebates are now offered by the federal government, distributed through the eligible United States, are available in 2025 and are the best, cleanest, and now cheapest alternative to indoor residential wood burning if that burning is actually done to purportedly save money. Wind and solar as sources of the electricity that powers heat pumps and electric cars is also cheaper than burning wood. The adverse health effects that are caused by indoor residential wood burning also come at a cost to near neighbors, both in shortening and ending their lives and in actual hospital, clinic, and funeral costs. Instead of being compensated monetarily, near neighbors should instead be able to achieve immediate relief by stopping indoor residential wood burning in their hyper-localized neighborhoods, which relief readings from purple air PM 2.5 monitors used as evidence of air pollution will help them achieve. Welcome to news about hopeful scientific and medical achievements that will also help us achieve the goal of clean air to breathe.
Webisode 57DHYAFZZej, February 16, 2026. Gas-powered vehicle CO2 emissions are of concern in 2026. Endangerment to human health from indoor residential wood burning was not addressed by the 2009 endangerment finding. Not PM 2.5, but CO2 from car vehicle exhaust was addressed. Because CO2 is a greenhouse gas and PM 2.5 did not get redress. But if standards for fuel efficiency fall to 34.5 from 50 miles per gallon under Biden, less alive, is human health. U.S. competitiveness will take a dive. Around the world, other countries do not need RVs. China will provide Europe and Canada with EVs. Who gains from the Trump Endangerment Finding Rollback and proposed fuel efficiency high standards rollback? Fossil fuel companies will sell more gas for vehicles with gas power. Fossil fuel companies will get what they asked Trump for. RVs cost more and will give some automakers bucks for sport utility vehicles and gas-guzzling trucks, but not more profits from drivers who care environmentally. American car manufacturers will fall behind uncertainly as lawsuits accumulate and other countries move past our nation. Weaker in human health, weaker in manufacturing reputation. PM 2.5 is not classified as a greenhouse gas. While it can influence weather patterns by absorbing and scattering sunlight, it does not trap heat in the atmosphere like greenhouse gases, such as CO2 or methane. The interactions between PM 2.5 and greenhouse gases are complex, but PM 2.5 itself does not function as a greenhouse gas because wood burning is considered a renewable, although it is not a clean renewable like wind and solar. Wood burning PM 2.5 emission data is also erased from the emissions data of all countries in the world when counting if every country in the world is meeting their climate goals of reducing harmful emissions. On December 7, 2009, the administrator signed two distinct findings regarding greenhouse gases under Section 202A of the Clean Air Act. Endangerment finding: the administrator finds that the current and projected concentrations of the six key well-mixed greenhouse gases carbon dioxide, CO2, methane, CH4, nitrous oxide, and 2O hydrofluorocarbons, HFCs, perfluorocarbons, PFCs, and sulfur hexafluoride, SF6, in the atmosphere threaten the public health and welfare of current and future generations, cause or contribute. Finding: the administrator finds that the combined emissions of these well-mixed greenhouse gases from new motor vehicles and new motor vehicle engines contribute to the greenhouse gas pollution that threatens public health and welfare. These findings do not themselves impose any requirements on industry or other entities. However, this action was a prerequisite for implementing greenhouse gas emission standards for vehicles and other sectors. By what percentage do wood burning PM 2.5 emissions exceed gasoline vehicle PM 2.5 emissions? AI overview: modern wood burning systems can emit higher PM 2.5 emissions compared to gasoline vehicles, but the exact percentage increase varies based on specific measurements and conditions. 450 times more pollution is often cited, but this comparison is misleading as it involves different pollutants. Wood burning is a major source of PM 2.5 emissions, contributing significantly to air quality in many areas. The actual percentage increase can depend on factors such as the type of wood used and the efficiency of the burning system. For a precise comparison, it is essential to consider the specific emissions data for both wood burning and gasoline vehicles. In the past, at least since 2009, the EPA regulating carbon dioxide emissions to protect human health, pointing to the 2009 endangerment finding RoHS, holds the hope that if CO2 is regulated by emission standards for gas-powered vehicles, there is more of a chance that CO2 may be regulated in the future for indoor residential wood burning. However, regulation of indoor residential wood burning by measuring PM 2.5 emissions is more straightforward, since PM 2.5 monitors such as low-cost residentially owned Purple Air monitors efficiently and economically provide information about PM 2.5 levels in the yards of near neighbors of indoor residential wood burner. By what percentage do wood burning CO2 emissions exceed gasoline vehicle CO2 emissions? AI overview: wood burning CO2 emissions exceed gasoline vehicle CO2 emissions. Burning wood emits more CO2 per unit of energy than burning gasoline or coal, with estimates indicating that wood burning can release 2.5 times more CO2 than natural gas and 30% more than coal. This is due to the inherent carbon content in wood, which is not fully absorbed during the life of the tree, leading to a significant release of CO2 when burned. RoHS view: Residents Against Wood Smoke Emission Particulates has expanded its view of air pollution from wood burning emissions of CO2 and PM 2.5, which exceed the PM 2.5 and CO2 emissions from the dirtiest fossil fuel burning, coal burning, by 2.8%, and exceed PM 2.5 emissions from the arguably cleanest fossil fuel, natural gas, by 450%. To expand the RoHS view to advocate for electric vehicles to replace gas-guzzling vehicles, because although wood burning emissions exceed PM 2.5 emissions from gasoline burning by the often cited figure of 450%, and wood burning emissions exceed CO2 emissions from gasoline burning by around 2.5%, total gas vehicle noxious emissions usually exceed wood burning emissions as a percent of total noxious emissions due to the great number of gas-powered vehicles still on the road. CO2, or carbon dioxide, is considered a greenhouse gas, while PM 2.5 is not a gas, and is not considered a greenhouse gas, although PM 2.5 contributes to hastening climate change along with CO2 emissions. Therefore, PM 2.5, which is the primary concern of residents against wood smoke emission particulates, is not addressed either by the endangerment finding or directly concerned with the rollback of the endangerment finding by Trump last Thursday, February 12, 2026. However, the rollback of the endangerment finding is part of Trump's attempted deregulation of most clean air rules. Deregulation of clean air rules affects or may affect the ability of RoHS to find ways to petition the EPA to regulate air pollution from indoor residential wood stoves. What was the endangerment finding of 2009? The endangerment finding was a 2009 scientific conclusion that greenhouse gas emissions pose a danger to American health and welfare. It provided the foundation to justify federal regulations that limit carbon dioxide, methane, and other pollution, including from cars, if the EPA decision holds it could increase greenhouse gas emissions in the United States by 10% over the next 30 years, according to the Environmental Defense Fund and advocacy group. Greenhouse emissions are the main driver of global climate change. How was the endangerment finding applied in the United States from 2009 to 2006? For 17 years, the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, worked in tandem with the Department of Transportation, with the EPA regulating carbon dioxide emissions to protect health, and the Transportation Department governing how much fuel a car can burn to conserve fuel. The endangerment finding had allowed the EPA, in recent years, to push standards more aggressively than possible using fuel economy rules, alone setting targets so low they would eventually have become virtually impossible for gasoline engines to meet. The EPA also had the authority, for example, to issue stop sale orders if an automaker failed to meet standards, preventing them from selling certain cars until the issue was resolved. The first Trump administration had moved to weaken both the tailpipe emissions and fuel economy standards. Mr. Biden had then reversed course, strengthening them. Could this endangerment finding rollback be easily reversed by a future U.S. president? Now that the second Trump administration has eliminated the EPA underlying authority to regulate greenhouse gases, another reversal by a future administration could be more difficult. Even if a new administration came in and was inclined to regulate greenhouse gases, it would take years to reissue and defend the endangerment finding, and in the meantime, they would have no authority to write any new greenhouse gas regulations. Are there Trump proposals to weaken remaining clean air rules? The remaining rules, such as the fuel efficiency requirements, could also be weakened. In December, the Trump administration proposed resetting the Transportation Department standard to require automakers to achieve an average of 34.5 miles per gallon for the full lineup of cars they sell. By 2031, the Biden-era target was closer to 50 miles per gallon. Ways that the endangerment finding rollback could be ignored, and we could create our own clean air in spite of Trump actions. 1. Consumers could still vote with their wallets and preferentially buy electric cars. Gas-powered cars have the added expense of the need to purchase gasoline. 2. Environmental groups could legally challenge Trump actions. 3. American automakers, even more dominated by gas-guzzling trucks and sport utility vehicles, may find they cannot sell them in the United States because of unpopularity, and American automakers will preferentially begin manufacturing electric vehicles in order to compete with China. For any resulting shift by American automakers toward gas guzzlers that cannot be sold in Europe or China could further isolate the U.S. market. Ways that the endangerment finding rollback may be helpful to fossil fuel companies, but not helpful to gas-powered vehicle manufacturers. 1. Consumers will continue to buy gasoline for their cars, which would benefit fossil fuel companies. 2. Uncertainty about whether the endangerment finding rollback will continue will create uncertainty for gas-powered vehicle manufacturers. 3. Car makers around the world are scrambling to secure enough electric vehicle EV batteries, and that race penalizes laggards, for China is building advanced vehicles that are going to take over the world. California had their own fuel efficiency standards in order to encourage electric vehicle purchases. California has vowed to sue to maintain fuel efficiency stricter standards. However, not just the endangerment finding rollback is a roadblock to California encouragement of electric vehicle purchases. 2. The Department of Transportation still regulates fuel economy under rules meant to conserve oil, but last year, the Trump administration proposed weakening the fuel economy standards to largely irrelevant levels. 3. The Republican-controlled Congress also set civil penalties for violations of fuel economy at $0, which essentially makes them voluntary for automakers. Isolation from the world who embrace the new technology of electric vehicles. EVs. China and Canada have made their own trade agreement for Canada to lower tariffs on Chinese-made electric vehicles. Trump proposed new fuel efficiency standards of 34.5 miles per gallon would be down from Biden standards of 50 miles per gallon. Those new standards would be less stringent than those in the European Union, as well as those of countries like China, Japan, and India. A separate decision by the U.S. Congress under Trump to eliminate fines for failure to comply with efficiency standards also makes the rules voluntary, saving automakers significant compliance costs. Any resulting shift by American automakers toward gas guzzlers that cannot be sold in Europe or China could further isolate the U.S. market, and the United States would increasingly cede the future of automotive technology to Chinese electric vehicle giants like BYD. Experts said we are an outlier now. World Industrial Competitiveness harmed the director of the Safe Climate Transport Campaign at the Center for Biological Diversity. An environmental group states that in addition to the costs to the climate and public health, there is a cost to the American auto industry in lagging in industrial competitiveness. From the article headline, with latest rollback, the U.S. essentially has no clean car rules. The EPA killing of the endangerment finding caps a year of deregulation that is likely to make cars thirstier for gas and less competitive globally, experts say. Excerpts edited by Rozep for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. The New York Times, February 16, 2026. The momentous end to the legal authority of the federal government to fight climate change makes it official. The United States will essentially have no laws on the books that enforce how efficient passenger cars and trucks in America should be. That is the practical result of the Trump year-long parade of regulatory rollbacks, capped on Thursday by its killing of the endangerment finding, the scientific determination that required the Environmental Protection Agency to regulate greenhouse gases because of the threat to human health. Webisode 57DHYAFZZEj. In January 11, 2026, Congress is racing to undo thousands of cuts to federal science programs. Cartoon 1 of 5. Congress is racing to undo thousands of cuts to federal science programs. Cell 1. The current government bid for an overall cut in scientific funding to $154 billion from $198 billion would be a plunge of 22%. Cell 2. This week, the Senate Appropriations Committee released a bipartisan package of bills. Cell 3 that largely scraps the current government planned cuts to federal science programs. Cell 4 Congress will set aside roughly $188 billion for federal research. Cartoon 2 of 5 Congress is racing to undo thousands of cuts to federal science programs. Cell 1 $188 billion for federal research will only be a drop of 4%. Cell 2 this rejects the current government push to let our competitors do laps around us. Cell 3 last year the current government administration called for a cut in federal basic research of more than 1/3. Cell for the current government sought even larger cuts for the National Science Foundation, which sponsors much of the nation's basic research. Cartoon 3 of 5 Congress is racing to undo thousands of cuts to federal science programs. Cell 1 the current government proposed that the National Science Foundation NSF budget be slashed to $3.9 billion. Cell 2 from $8.8 billion a drop of 56%. Cell 3 the Senate package countered with a reduction to $8.75 billion. Cell 4 or less than 1%. Cartoon 4 of 5 Congress is racing to undo thousands of cuts to federal science programs. Cell 1 the Senate package includes $24.4 billion for NASA, a 1.6% cut. Cell 2 $8.8 billion for the Environmental Protection Agency EPA, a 4% cut. Cell 3 $8.4 billion for the Department of Energy Office of Science, a 1.9% increase. Cell 4 $6.2 billion for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, roughly flat. Cartoon 5 of 5 Congress is racing to undo thousands of cuts to federal science programs. Cell 1 the Senate and the House are now not far apart for negotiations on a final budget. Cell 2 the House's moves on 2026 science budgeting add up to $185 billion, which is close to the Senate figure of $188 billion. Cell 3 but this cannot undo the damage that the current government administration frenzy of budget cutting and administrative chaos. Cell 4 brought to the nation's scientific establishment.
Webisode 57DHYAFZZEj January 11, 2025 If science funds are restored then fund alternatives to wood burning. Cartoon 1 of 5 If science funds are restored, then fund alternatives to wood burning. Cell 1 fund heat pumps that work down to 40 degrees below zero and also act as air conditioners. Cell 2 fund extending a smart electric grid everywhere, including all rural areas. Cell 3 fund wind and solar energy sources that produce electricity sent to the smart grid. Cell 4 fund batteries that store the electricity produced by wind and solar long-term for use in emergencies. Cartoon 2 of 5 If science funds are restored then cut dirty energy that is now funded. Cell 1 cut funds for biofuels such as wood stoves and wood burning for home heating. Cell 2 cut funds for biofuels such as corn-based ethanol for automobile fuel. Cell 3 cut funds for wood and other biofuels used to replace coal burning in industrial plants. Cell 4 cut funds for fossil fuels as well as cut funds for biofuels. Cartoon 3 of 5 If science funds are restored enact regulations that fund removal of indoor residential wood burning appliances. Cell 1 fund resident-owned Purple Air PM 2.5 monitors. Cell 2 given free to any near neighbor of an indoor residential wood burner. Cell 3 whose wood burning PM 2.5 emissions enter the yard of the near neighbor and sicken them. Cell 4 use the data downloadable from the Purple Air map as evidence to shut down each indoor residential wood burning appliance one appliance at a time if necessary. Cartoon 4 of 5 If science funds are restored enact regulations that make electric vehicles and public transport affordable. Cell 1 reinstate rebates for electric vehicles. Cell 2 fund high-speed electric transport that will be low cost to all. Cell 3 enact fuel regulations to discourage production of gas-powered vehicles. Cell 4 fund research that makes production of electric vehicles efficient and cost-effective. Cartoon 5 of 5 If science funds are restored enact regulations that make home heating and transport by electric vehicle affordable. Cell 1 do not allow subsidies for luxury electric vehicles. Cell 2 do not allow subsidies for home heating for individuals making over a certain salary. Cell 3 tax the rich to provide clean energy subsidies for the middle income and poor. Cell 4. Keep in mind that the Energy Department and the EPA should work to stop air pollution that harms human health as well as slow climate change.
Webisode 57DHYAFZZej January 4, 2026 Would smoke affect the family adversely? Cartoon 1 of 2 Cell 1 When you know you are not protecting your family well enough. When you replace air filters and air purifiers every month instead of every 6 months. Just do not burn wood indoors residentially to begin with. Cell 2 When you are scared whenever someone opens a window. Just do not burn wood indoors residentially to begin with. Cartoon 2 of 2 Cell 1 It gives me no great joy to say this. Smog towers do not work. Cell 2 Carbon capture does not work. Just do not burn wood industrially in place of coal to begin with.
Red Green Fox here. The quick Red Green Fox jumped over the barriers to clean air. Red Green Fox here. Ready to sing to you the names of the 2025 major wood-burning biomass industry subsidy opponents. 1. Biofuel Watch. 2. Bulkley Valley Stewardship Coalition of British Columbia, Canada. 3. Comite Lucht, which means Beautiful Air Committee in German. 4. Dogwood Alliance. 5. Equity Group Foundation, nicknamed EGF. 6. Environmental Paper Network, nicknamed EPN. 7. Natural Resources Defense Council, nicknamed NRDC. 8. Prakaunia Narzek Wissenskip Istet, which means Workshop for All Beings in Polish. 9. Rachel Carson Council. 10 Solutions for Our Climate, nicknamed SFOC.
Cat's corner strategy with Tiger and Leone. Saying the quiet part out loud. Roar. Hi, I am Tiger. Our human asked us to get up from our naps and start Cat's corner strategy with Tiger and Leone. She gave us a list of internet allies which we will post for her here.
Hi, I am Leone. It is better for your mental fitness to go to these websites than to go to bro sites for advice. Substack letters from an American Heather Cox Richardson. Substack your local epidemiologist. The Midas Touch. The Guardian. The New York Times.
One introduction. Rosette view. The United States government was on track in the Biden administration to reduce the prices for both clean energy heat pumps and clean energy electric cars. Trump tariffs are expected to upset those plans to prevent future air pollution and prevent climate change. The United States government should, instead of certifying wood stoves as safe when they are not safe, go forward with regulations that ban wood stove use and direct government money for use of forest refuse only. For home building and furniture building. For just a few examples of use of forest products for non-burning uses. It is well known from scientific and medical research that wood burning is a substantial source of PM 2.5 emissions, yet the wood burning industry uses the scientifically debunked theory named carbon neutrality of wood burning to argue that wood burning replacing coal burning in industry, and in a trickle-down argument that wood burning should continue for home heating should continue. Presumably because it is called renewable. Wood may be renewable in the sense that a tree can be planted in the place of a cut-down burned tree, but it takes centuries or decades for the newly planted tree to attain the stature of the cut-down burned tree. During those centuries or decades, photosynthesis, which converts CO2 to oxygen, and so sequesters some carbon, will not take place at the same rate as photosynthesis was performed previously, and wood burning emits both CO2 and PM 2.5, and PM 2.5 is not absorbed by trees, so PM 2.5 is not diminished by planting a tree in the place of a cut-down and burned tree. In fact, a living tree closes its pores against the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning, just as humans hold their breath in the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning. And when a tree closes its pores, the level of photosynthesis that absorbs CO2 pollution goes down. Wood burning emits 90% PM 2.5 particulate matter of 2.5 micrometer size, the perfect size to infiltrate the human lung, setting off a cascade of human health problems and early deaths. Contrary to many beliefs, wood burning emits 2.8 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel coal burning, and wood burning emits 450 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel natural gas burning. Replacing coal burning with wood burning creates more air pollution in the form of CO2 and PM 2.5 than coal burning. This emission data comes from testing the cleanest burning wood stove in the United Kingdom, the Eco-Design Wood Stove. International Convention does not count the emissions from wood burning. The emissions from wood burning are erased from all countries around the world when calculating if each country has met its climate goals. This non-counting or erasure of wood burning emissions data from climate goals does not mean wood burning emissions do not exist. Rosette view. Purple air. PM 2.5 monitors hanging from the eaves of the house of a near neighbor should be used to measure the level of PM 2.5 in the air hyperlocally in the yards of near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners. If PM 2.5 levels exceed World Health Organization standards of 5 micrograms per cubic meter annually, then that evidence of air pollution from wood burning should lead to the shutdown of that indoor residential wood burning appliance, one appliance at a time if necessary.